All right, I am going to go ahead and call this meeting of the Dunn County Board of Supervisors Executive Committee to order. Is Tom still with us up online? He appears to have dropped off. Well, we are all here except for Tom, who may be back momentarily. Well, okay. So that gives us the call of the roll. Next would be approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion? Supervisor Steen, Supervisor Johnson. Any discussion of the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Motion, the minutes are approved. Public comments. Did we get anything online? I recognize everybody in the room, so we should be good for the public comments. County manager's report. Chris.
All right. Sorry, we were fixing a little glitch, so I'm a little discombobulated. Okay, reviewing the draft November 15th County Board agenda, which is next Tuesday instead of Wednesdays. Everyone make note of that. So we will have the usual purchase orders over $40,000. I'm going to talk a little bit with the board about communication planning that we're doing. The committee reports will be, or the department reports will be Highway Department's financial report, which is a statutory required action that they take to report on their financial position at the end of the year. County Treasurer financial report, and then the NDC annual report. These reports that come at the end of the year, a lot of times the department heads will kind of tweak so that it's really the end part of last year and then this year, because it's sort of silly to be reviewing 2021 at the end of 2022. Then we have a series of reports and resolutions coming forward from the standing committees. And
I'm going to work over.
Oh, please do.
I think Supervisor Quinn is trying to get in.
I saw you. There you go. And then this will be the, so there are resolution on increasing pay for the district attorney, assistant district attorneys. There are a rezone. There is a amendment from the health department, or a ordinance amendment from the health department. And then there are the series of routine things that we do at the end of the year to cancel checks over 2 years old, to charge back illegal tax certificates. And then there's an amendment to the inventory of job classes, a acceptance of the resolution on dental, which is not currently on the draft, but I will add it. And then resolution then there's a resolution from the neighbors of Dunn County regarding a change in how they'd like to process their end of the year balances and budget adjustment. And then the big ta-da to adopt the 2023 budget and 2023 levy, and to move forward on authorizing the issuance of bonds or debt for the $1 million to bring a balanced budget. But that is just the authorization. It is not the move to actually, we will not make the decision until later in the year to see whether or not we need that money or not. Got dental in there. And then the legislative agenda. So it will be a busy meeting. Any questions about that?
Anyone?
And then the second part of my report is just a little bit, we've been, did a summary for the Committee on Administration, and we did a summary for Community Resources and Tourism. So I'm not sure, I believe that you were aware of this and we've talked about it, or Supervisor Zons has brought it forward, but the Community Resources and Tourism asked that there be included in the 2023 budget a $12,000 allocation or allotment to be able to purchase the services of a professional kind of communicator who will help us to craft messages about important items for the board, from the board to the community. And so in a sort of opportunity that we have available, Doug Mell was the communications director at UW Stout for some time, and he is interested in working for us under that contract for that dollar amount for up to 10 hours a month. Which so the amount is up to $12,000 for the year to be up to $1,000 a month. And so that's one piece of sort of the communication part. So that led to, I've been working with Dan Dunbar and Krista, and I have formed our own little, Krista Vin and I have formed our own committee to work on thinking about messaging and communication on a grander scale. And so we have purchased some additional camera and audio equipment in order to create a professional a version as we're able with having the equipment available to be able to do some videotaping. We have brainstormed a wide variety of topics that we would like to tackle, but the first one is the first one that we did a little test drive for last month was before the county board meeting. We didn't put it out. We just did it as a dry run. The county manager speaking to the, I get noise coming from.
It sounds like whoever is on the phone is someplace where, oh, there we go.
I
Now it's
muted them. Yep.
Yeah.
Because all of the department heads get invites to it, could well be a department head. So, yeah. So, so we did a videotape of the county manager speaking to the agenda for the county board meeting with the intent that we would do that each month and just do a kind of 2 to 3 minute video around what's up and coming and how people can access that. In the hope of encouraging some engagement on the part of the public to either watch those meetings or watch the video thereafter. We also have been tossing around the idea of doing some short videos on Meet Your County Board Member. So if anybody wants to volunteer, we will be we will be moving forward at some point with that. We've also been working on developing a topic list of just areas of interest or areas that the general public may commonly come across but not know much about. So for instance, the budget process, what does that look like? How does that work? How is that decided? The tax assessment process, how does that the whole process work from assessor through to the time when you receive your tax statement? We've looked at some areas within county operations that we'd like to emphasize or accentuate some of the good services that we do. And so we've been focusing on our outward facing messaging, but we have an equal amount of work to do on our inward messaging as well with staff and really working on, again, highlighting all of the great work that happens in the county and really bringing people up to speed in how all of the processes work. So I just wanted you to be aware of that because we're going to, Supervisor Zons has offered to lend us his professional expertise and help us to professionalize the work that we're doing. Not that Krista and Dan aren't great at a lot of that, but Supervisor Zons has been at it for many years and is willing to help us out. And so we're going to meet and do some work for next week's county board meeting.
Sounds great. Anyone have any questions for Chris? Okay. On to reports, resolutions, and ordinances for the county board from the executive committee. First, resolution approving FY 2022 budget adjustments for Sheriff's Department, District Attorney, and Human Services. I presume this is our usual money comes in, money goes out, we need to allocate. Do I have a motion to approve that? Supervisor Calabrese.
I'll second, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Morehouse. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Number 2, resolution adopting the FY 2023 budget. Chris, do you want to add anything to what we've had to date, or?
I don't believe so. I think that the adopting resolution just captures all of the, not the discussion, but the end result of all of the work that you've done over the last several months.
All right. So do I have a motion to adopt the budget?
Mr. Chairman, I will move that we adopt the 2023 budget as framed in this document.
Thank you, Supervisor Morehouse. Do I have a second?
Second.
Supervisor Zons. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have adopted the budget and move it on to county board. Next one, the levy, which is pretty straightforward. We have to pay for the budget we've just adopted. So do I have a motion? Supervisor Headland and a second. Supervisor Kinnear. Any further discussion on the levy? Supervisor Steen.
Yeah, this thought just occurred to me, and I missed it for the motion that we just had, but I would like the total amount of money that's being approved to be spoken as part of the motion.
Okay. Chris, are you pulling up that number?
And I missed the gun on the other one, but I would have liked the same thing.
I think that
I did say as written.
yeah, and since we are, having the discussion now, we can certainly announce the total of the budget as Chris pulls those numbers up. All right.
So the resolution adopting the 2023 property tax levy is $24,347,863.
Okay, and did you want shall we get the budget number in there as well, Supervisor Steen, with that?
If you would.
The total amount of the 2023 county budget to be adopted would be $93,546,752.
Thank you, Chris. Any further discussion?
I just have a question. I'm sorry, I have a question. I'm looking on my screen and it says 92 million.
Mm-hmm.
Did I say?
You said 93.
Oh, well, let me correct myself then. It is 92 million.
Way to go, Mike. We saved $1 million already.
There you go.
Well done.
Tried to sneak that million in there.
Good try, Chris.
Didn't even work. $92,546,752.
Thank you for the corrected number. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Resolution authorizing borrowing not to exceed $1 million and providing for the issuance and sale of general obligation promissory notes. Still on to the parts of the budget of the already approved budget. So do I have a motion? Supervisor Steen? And do I have a second? Supervisor Calabrese? Any further discussion? Oh, Nick?
I just want to inject a comment. As Chris noted, this is not the actual act of borrowing. This is only the authorization for it. This will require a 3/4 vote of the county board. And so because it is a component of the budget that you're also presenting, I guess I would recommend that you tie them together so that you don't have a rejection of the borrowing come after the, not take them up at the same time, but from an informational standpoint, you know.
Oh, yeah, frame
point
it for the,
frame it so
for the
that-
full board.
That everyone understands that the adoption of the budget necessitates the, you know, the borrowing. Otherwise, you're gonna end up with a long meeting, I think. But anyway, the meeting or the resolution will require a 3/4 vote of all the county board members.
Well, and it's worth noting that it is entirely possible that we will be borrowing much less than that million.
It's
Or
true.
not at all, but we won't know until we see how the budget plays out. And I would certainly hope that it will be on the low side of that. Supervisor Steen, oh, sorry.
I was gonna say, our financial advisors would recommend to us that we, you know, they take into consideration the interest rates that are going at any given time. It may be opportune to wait until late in the year to do it. Once we have better information, as you pointed on.
Thank you, Nick. Supervisor Steen.
Yeah, this might be a dumb question, but why don't we address the borrowing of $1 million before we address the budget?
Nick, did you have any input on that?
I'm sorry.
Supervisor Steen was wondering why we don't address the borrowing before we address the budget.
There's no reason yet that you can't take that up in that order. That's just a matter of the order of items in the agenda.
Well, my reasoning being that you wouldn't have to have the explanation that you got to approve the budget. You know, you approve the budget and it's got $1 million borrowing in there. So why not just address that first and then address your budget?
I know that traditionally we've come at it levy and pay for after the adoption of the budget. And I suspect that part of the reason for that is that it is probably politically easier for many people to say, okay, we have adopted this budget, we have to pay for it, and then adopt the levy rather than to start with the adoption of the levy or the adoption of the borrowing. Because those might be more contentious outside of the framework of having approved the budget.
I would, I hear what you're saying, but I guess maybe my interest would be that this would take away the need for a long and contentious meeting because it would already be approved. In other words, nobody could hold your budget hostage for the $1 million. Just my way of looking at it, which is Norwegian, so it's probably not right. But
well, no, I'm just thinking that it's probably easier to hold to cause a meeting to run longer. I'm not going to say hold hostage. It is a perfectly reasonable argument about borrowing, but I think that you are more likely to get a longer and bigger argument about borrowing if you start with the borrowing and then move on to the budget. That would be my Supervisor Rogers.
How do I approve borrowing money before I don't know what you're spending it on? That would be an issue I would have a problem with.
I agree.
I'm severely chastised, so I'll withdraw my question.
Well, no, I mean, it's a perfectly reasonable question. It's just, and I had to pause and think through it. No, it's a reasonable question. I'm glad you asked it, and we moved through there. So, hang on while I pull this back up.
Chair McCullough, can I just add a little bit of additional information?
Sure, and we don't yet have a motion for this, I don't think, do we? For the borrowing.
We do.
Oh, we do. Oh, yes,
Yes,
we
we
do.
do.
I'm sorry.
We're in the discussion. So we did talk with our
I just want to make sure we.
with our bond advisor, and so we need about 3 months of lead time from start to finish in order to do the borrowing. So we can wait until late in the year. In addition, it's likely to be a small enough amount of money that it wouldn't actually be a general obligation bond. It'd be something that we would probably just do through another funding source like a bank, because it could also be potentially just short-term debt. One option would be to consider what was needed in order to finish out the year and then wait for the following year's audit report to see what the general fund looked like and just pay off any debt. I mean, there would be another number of options at that point in time. And then the third part of it is that Beata has worked over the last, you give that woman a little bit of something and she just goes all out. But so between last week and this week, she has developed a tool that will be valuable not only to the department heads in terms of tracking their annual accumulative expenditures, but also that we talked about how would we be able to look at quarterly, mid-year, where we were at in terms of funding and spending and where our need for borrowing. And she has that all developed and is prototyping it with the departments. So we will be able to have a very accurate picture going throughout the year of where we're at in terms of both individual department spending, but also aggregate spending on the part of the whole county.
All right. Any further discussion of the resolution currently on the floor? Supervisor Morehouse.
Oh, sorry.
No, okay.
I was preparing to vote.
Supervisor Calabrese.
Thank you. In the bold heading at the top of this resolution, the last word, and maybe I just don't know, is there supposed to be an E at the end of that therefore, or is that a legal word? I don't know. Yeah, general obligation promissory notes therefore.
Yeah, that's an old antique word.
Okay, I thought maybe.
It doesn't mean.
Your mic,
Your
mic on?
It's an old antique kind of word lawyers use. It doesn't mean because of A, therefore B. It means
that's what the notes are for.
I have a new car and I'm gonna go get some wax. Therefore. So this borrowing is for the it's sale of general obligation promissory notes. Therefore,
okay.
So it's for the borrowing.
Well, thank you. So I didn't go to college, so I don't know.
I didn't draft this. We have bond counsel that drafts this.
I missed that on Schoolhouse Rock.
Yeah.
Purely as a side note, the aha was because it is a word that I have mostly seen in naval dispatches from like the 1800s.
Yeah. Yeah. There. See.
Yeah. So. Any further speaking to the resolution? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Now on to the review section. Review of reports, resolutions, and ordinances coming to the county from the standing committees, judiciary and law, resolution supporting an increase in pay for assistant district attorneys. Do you want to speak to that at all, John, or Supervisor Calabrese, or?
Thank you. It's pretty self-explanatory. It was also included in the legislative agenda, just trying to keep up with the pace in the public sector so we can attract some assistant district attorneys and keep them.
All righty. Planning, resources, and development. Ordinance approving a zoning map amendment, lots 1 and 2 of CSM 3492, Ray Whitkey, Town of Sherman. Tom, do you want to speak to that at all, or?
No, well, just briefly, maybe this is sort of resolves a kind of knotty land use problem that we've been faced with. It's an existing business that would like to rezone an adjacent parcel from GA to commercial. This will allow them to move some operations on their business to a more appropriate location and diminish a conflict with a residential area. This was supported by the Town of Sherman and the Town of Sherman Planning Commission as being consistent with their long range land use plans for the area, and they did support the rezone.
Thank you, Tom. Health and Human Services Health Department Ordinance 19-27, Supervisor Morehouse.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is essentially a cleanup of a 2018 ordinance, which was also included in your packet. Basically, what this allows the public health department to do is to establish its own fees for inspections of restaurants and other facilities, perhaps more tailored to the needs of those businesses in the county than the previous ordinance, which essentially adopted by ordinance the state fees. So this will come to the board for a first read. And assuming that passes, the public health department will come back to us with a fee structure, which will need to be done before May, because the fees are usually assessed in June and payable by July. The ordinance also sets up some late payment and other kinds of structures.
Thank you, Supervisor Morehouse. Nick, did you?
No, sorry, I was looking beyond.
Okay, no, that's fine. I'm just like, have I done something wrong? I should check. Okay. Committee on Administration. Resolution canceling checks over 2 years old. Vaughn, do you want to talk about any of these, or?
I guess
Mike?
Mike. Mike.
Get you a beeper.
Yeah, a beeper. Clicker, yeah.
Clicker.
Yeah, they're, again, unless someone has a question, it's something that happens every year. These are checks that are 2 years old and have not been cashed. And people who have these been issued these checks, if they later come forward and want them reissued, they may. We are not canceling our obligation. We're just canceling the checks on that one. Charging back legal taxes. If you look on that one in your packet, it's for the same property for over a number of years, and it was established it doesn't belong to the person we were charging those taxes to. Oops. And that has been cleaned up. Inventory of job classifications, the changes that are taking place in the transit department, where we are taking over the operation with our own employees as opposed to contracted services that we have had in the past. If you note, that was according to a study then done by our HR and transportation, that is budget neutral, that we can make that change without changing the budget. So thank you to them. And then one that was not included that you will be seeing is a resolution including adoption of the dental premiums for the associates who work for the county that have dental coverage. And I think we were just so happy to see the numbers at the admin meeting that they brought forward of the coverage that we're going to be able to obtain for our employees, and the cost over that is guaranteed over a 2-year period in the future is pretty nice. And so thank you to the people who were responsible for obtaining that good service for our employees. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Supervisor Headland. E, the Neighbors of Dunn County resolution regarding year-end balance changes. Supervisor Kinnear, do you want to?
Only if we have questions, I'll be very happy to ask Carmen to answer them.
Good answer.
There you go. So do we have questions? It does not look like it. This is a relatively, oh, Supervisor Hedlund.
Okay, I did admit one thing. We are not having a admin committee meeting in the month of November. We are going to have one meeting for the months of November, December combined, so to speak. We will be meeting, our next meeting is December 15th at 3 o'clock for admin committee. And this time of the year, it gets the decisions we need to make get a little slow. So we decided on the next meeting date for admin will be December 15th. Thank you.
I guess with no questions for Carmen, we are on to reports from standing committees. Vaughn, would you consider that your report, or do you want to add something else to your standing committee? That's I figured that was where we were. So, okay, thank you, Supervisor Hedlund. Supervisor Quinn, I'm going to ask you to go next so that I do not forget you.
Okay, thank you. So we, I guess you have the rezone petition that we worked on, presented. We have been continuing our discussions around the Lake Tainer district, where we asked staff to develop a brief form for nomination that we have to do for the initial board. That'll be going out probably not for a while, but maybe later in the year. And from that, we'll try and identify the 3 or 4 people that we have to appoint to the board. That's really about it. We have had a light agenda lately.
Thank you, Supervisor Quinn. Supervisor Morehouse.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Health and Human Services Board last met on October 27th, and all of the county board members were present. We had our usual great reports from all 3 divisions, and because we had the environmental health ordinance coming up, the fee structure ordinance, which we just talked about, Jeff Robb joined us. He's our environmental health specialist. Talked a little bit about his work and about some of the work that he's doing with land conservation, which is enabling us not to hire contractors, but share the work among county departments. And I think it's another example of our county departments working really well together. The Department of Human Services also talked about collaboration across departments. They just had a kind of in-service with the Veterans Services Organization, and Ms. Winter noted that the staff from 2 departments know each other very well and do a great job of handing off clients and working really well together. So that was nice to hear. Public Health reported on an uptick in respiratory cases, particularly RSV, which was up almost 11% by testing. So expect that this might be they didn't have flu statistics yet, but it might be a slightly rocky winter. Public Health is likely to return some money to the budget, but that's probably going to be in the form of carry forwards, since those are grant dollars. The Department of Human Services is very likely to return $1.5 million to the general fund. Really great work from the staff and Sarah Stabenow and finance. So we reviewed our vouchers, approved a budget amendment, this ordinance that you just looked at. And since our next meeting was scheduled for Thanksgiving Day, and the Health and Human Services Board members didn't really want, they didn't really want to. We postponed, and our next meeting will be December 22nd. That's my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Morehouse. Supervisor Johnson.
Thank you. The Highway Committee met this morning. Commissioner Bender reported that County Z and H projects are completed. He met with the railroad and WISDOT to go over project details of the County B work that it is scheduled to start next year. Crews have been shouldering county roads with lime rock, hauling salt sand to the outlying shops, spray patching and mowing ditches. The engineering superintendent has resigned. The committee took action to possibly amend the engineering superintendent position to assistant highway commissioner. Next meeting will be December 15th. That's all I have.
Thank you, Supervisor Johnson. Supervisor Kinnear.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Neighbors Committee met October 27th, just a bit ago. A few of the things that Administrator Meyer told us, they're planning on administering the new booster. They've got that available, but there's a lot of work to do before they can even administer it, getting permissions and everything else. Chris Anderson is working hard to get people to apply. He was over at UW Eau Claire for a job fair. There's an employee survey underway that is looking to see why people stay and why they leave and see what we can do about it. And we still have 2 neighborhoods closed, Fireside and Arrowhead. But we've got some beds that we're starting to fill again as we, not in those 2 neighborhoods, but in the other ones as we get staff. Let's see, facilities hired a couple people to clean, so it's working together again as you're talking about things are good. Let's see, and as I said last time, I think it's easier visit. I'll just bring a mask and walk in and get a room. More mask, the person doesn't care. You're safe there too. So good. And of course, we just looked at the resolution that we passed. That our next meeting is December 15th. Also, someone else's 15th. Yeah, you took our room. Yeah, but I'm not going to meet in November, and that's my report.
Thank you, Supervisor Bonds.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We actually met yesterday afternoon and went over a few things. We heard from our extension director that they are still they're making decisions about a possible new 4-H director. I actually sat in those interviews last week. They had one candidate drop out, and then there were 2 different candidates, one local from a teacher from Downsville, and then the other is actually in Massachusetts. So he has had his interview via Zoom, but he's actually had some background experience that kind of considered. They have not made a decision yet, going through some references about the candidates. Also heard from every month we hear from a different extension educator, and we hear from our food educator talking about some of the things that the food advisor has been doing. One of the things I thought was really interesting is that they've been encouraging and trying to build use of people who are using their EP cards to use and the farmers market participation that they've done this now, like I think it's been 3 years, has increased almost exponentially, which is really nice. That not only are folks that are on food share being able to get healthy food options, but also being humble Dunn County farmers and businesses. So it's kind of like a win-win type of situation. So they're going to continue that. What else we talked about? You're a little bit from our stuff. We had a longer update from her about that yesterday, and I'm going to talk about with the next video tomorrow as they put that together. So action, explosions, fire, lots of CGI special effects. And then I see that I think on our agenda that we have our next meeting was set for December. I think we're going to have so our next meeting is December 15th. So that's all. Yeah.
Thank you, Supervisor Bonds.
The EJ came out, we met October 24th, and the sheriff talked about the position that he decided that he didn't need to come to the budget, and he said, we'll be and the longest discussion item was that the EJ, the clerk courts requested that the office could discontinue receiving passport applications. The clerk court had been doing that, which explained that by the department, and they're now requiring sort of specifically that those applications be couriered from the county to post office by an official person trained to do so, and Dunn County uses them. And so Katie has requested of the committee that they discontinue that service, and she explained that people who are trained to receive the applications have to do a 10-hour training every year. That would take time, they have to wait, and since it's not required by law, the clerk court office does it. She requested that no longer do it, and while acknowledging that does receive some revenue, the county gets $35 from each passport application, which divided in charge of 7 years here, and that due to the new agreement she has with the child support agency in sharing some revenue, that revenue from the passport will be made up there, and including rights. And so the committee agreed that we'll discontinue that program. The clerk court is on the website and double they can submit applications because you do it full fast. You can't do it now, you do it nationwide. But it's good. And short meeting was 25 minutes long, and our next meeting is November 28th.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. My question is, rather than the business of offering service, there's something else utilizing somebody from your department or any of our departments that could do this. Is there any chance of that?
Well, that question was asked, and the problem is that it has to be someone who's gone through training who can deliver and examine the data office, and due to the setting they have there to take someone out of the office, do that because it has to be done that day too. When the application has been, it's just not making any sense.
Well, a broader aspect of my question would be that we have no way to I hate to see us, I realize it's not mandated, I get that, but I hate to see us take a service away, and if my mind doesn't matter, I work courses with I guess that's a thought, and I'll have to worry. If you think my idea has any merit, is there some way that we could find the answer in the county? That's my only thought.
Speak to that a little bit. So I think there's 2 issues. One is that the answer drives to the post office, transfer your business, come back, that it could be upwards of 45 minutes or better each day, which is a significant amount of time. No, they have to take it to money, but I have to go downtown park, take it in, come back. And then if they set on a day to do that, and they get an expedited application that has to go that day, they have to do it. And so I think that the concern that it just is something that we're not obligated or required to do, and then the cost involved in any staff dedicating half an hour to an hour each other day, 5 hours a week, just one that was a balance of what we should be doing, can do, and some of the things we need to go.
So I guess I think that we stop a service. Is it something that we can just charge $100 for? And I think me personally, I'd rather pay $100 to have in towns that are driving Eau Claire or Madison or wherever I gotta go get my passport.
I think the fees are federally mandated, so probably not.
I heard both answers, thank you very much, but I don't like them.
The fee that we are reimbursed for is built into the application fee, and that's that $35 government staff. I would anticipate that the federal government would probably fine on us attaching additional grant.
And I think I also add that I think a case that she might go on the website where she went to a website that shows from the federal government that shows the job applications when are people who are applying for new passports. But if you're just renewing your passport, you don't need to do that through UPS store.
And you can do it online.
Okay, so wrapping this up. Supervisor Rogers.
On October 26th, facilities had a meeting. During the meeting, we discussed the transfer station. We had a public comment, and we had a member of the DFL. They also spoke on some of the things. Our council gave us some guidance on moving forward some of the state and federal regulations we have to be aware of, and we'll work on preparing more in kind of one of the topics that was also discussed is the possibility of partnerships between some of the interested parties to maybe spread out costs and maybe expand some services. So that's not going to next time. There was some discussion about playground equipment at one of the parks in Lambs Creek. That's something the public wanted us to do. We're going to put in contact with some people that are just going to donate some time and money since we have the access to build a lot of equipment on the parks at this time. We're going to do work on the camping. It's time to separate the wet park camping from the parking and the rest separately. And our next meeting will be November 30th. Thank you, Supervisor. Next meeting we'll be here to so exactly how that gets announced will get sorted out, but we'll be here from legislative on. So Supervisor, just an announcement that I got up issue of the was in pretty bad sorts, and that has been taken care of. Thank you. Highway already, and it is thank you. That was we see people trying to cross that angles and somebody unaware with the camper. They cross that angle to stop. All right, thank you. Anyone have Supervisor House? Yes, dealing with the health educator and the health department initiated a wonderful fundraiser for some very cool nice very cool navy blue sweatshirts with health and right logo on them. And by this kind of interesting quirk, that the printer sent the wrong version, sent some version for a pub crawl in the hospital. They immediately turned around and sent them showing the right ones. So anyway, we have a double order, and so they are very cool health and right sweatshirts, very comfortable. They look really good and fast. And every single health there's a board by some strange quirk of fate bought one. And so my board members would love to have one. Just stop by the health department. Thank you, Supervisor Morehouse. Anybody have anything else? We are adjourned. Thank you all.